This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network, an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
Potters, are you looking for high-quality equipment and supplies? Since 1974, Bailey Pottery Equipment, based in Kingston, New York, has produced equipment used in schools, universities, and art centers nationwide. Their gas kilns, renowned for ease of use, fuel efficiency, and beautiful results, are a global favorite. Bailey Pottery Equipment caters to all skill levels, offering a range of equipment and top brand ceramic supplies at discounted prices, all backed by their outstanding personal service. Visit BaileyPottery.com, the professional's choice for all things clay.
Hey, this is Erin with Cornell Studio Supply, located in Dayton, Ohio, exclusive distributor of Jen Allen templates and Put a Lid on It t-shirts. We are a proud sponsor of this episode and the Brickyard Network. Find all your pottery and ceramic sculpture needs, including the largest stock of GR pottery forms at CornellStudioSupply.com. At Cornell Studio Supply, we are owned and operated for potters, by potters.
Hello, my name is Kathy King, and welcome to the Flux Sake podcast. I'm coming to you from the Harvard Ceramics program in our fair city, Allston, Massachusetts. I'm here with Rose and Matt Katz of the world-famous Ceramic Materials Workshop, and they are ready to answer your burning questions about clay and glaze. Howdy, Matt and Rose.
Oh, hi, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Are you ready for the upcoming holidays? Wow. Okay.
Do you want to stress me out right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm a classic husband. I'm ready. I have no responsibility except buying presents.
Right?
Yes,
exactly. And
exactly.
stay up in the middle of the night and wrap them, right? Because your kids are old. You know, they're at the age that they're still expecting.
Oh, yeah.
Some surprises, right?
They still expect some surprises. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. We've started our list back in like October.
Well, let's see. I mean, I'm guessing what you want for the holidays is probably more Glaze books.
Oh, interesting
Glaze
topic.
books. Like our producer's Ben, I love that book. But boy, we have found
some doozies.
We found some challenging Glaze books out there, everybody.
Well, yeah, it's a book that doesn't say much.
Yeah. So we mentioned on a previous episode, Rose and I have been buying we do this sometimes. We go through stages where we're like, we'll just go and buy a ton of ceramics books. Because, we don't, you can't get caught up with every single book that comes around. So we'll sort of look at what we don't have and scour Amazon and whatever. So on top of that, Rose is working on a new project where we wanted some perspectives that we didn't have. And so we were going through and we just bought a ton of Glaze books. And one of them was a book I'd never heard of the author, who will remain anonymous at this point. And I'd never heard of this book, but it was like $10. So I bought it. Mm-hmm. And I'm fairly confident the book was written purely by AI.
Robots?
I don't think it's a
robot Glaze books, really?
I know, it's a thing.
I don't think it's real, and it's so weird.
What makes you think that?
Well, I mean, I will say the first thing is that, again, I've never heard of this author before, and like I know a lot of people in ceramics, but I figured they could be international or something. When we bought the book, the first thing is there is nothing about the author. Zero. The book was self-published. It was printed on one of the instant printers because it literally said like the the printing date was the date we bought it. There's no ISBN number, that whole page where you get copyright and all, none of that exists. It literally just goes straight into the book. But then the way it's written is so weird. I have a passage here. I'm going to read to you from this book, everybody.
With a Shakespearean accent, or I mean, gonna practice there.
I wish I could. I can't take this that seriously. And it's not wrong. It's just so, I don't know. It's okay. Let me just read it. You all can see what you think. Transparent glazes are designed to enhance the underlying clay body, allowing its natural color and texture to shine through. This makes them ideal for showcasing intricate designs or textures that have been carved or impressed into the clay. For instance, a piece of pottery with detailed slip decoration can benefit immensely from a transparent glaze, which doesn't obscure the artwork, but rather accentuates it. Beginners should be aware that transparent glazes can come in various finishes, such as satin, glossy, which further influence the final look of the piece. It is advisable to test a small area first to ensure that the desired effect is achieved and the underlying clay color can influence the final appearance. None of that is wrong.
It's about as dry as somebody I know, though.
Yeah.
It's like test a small area. So is it like fabric where you like color test it? Like put it through the washer, see if it's gonna like bleed?
But it's even worse than that, because if you think about it, it's kind of saying nothing.
Doesn't say anything.
And the whole book reads like that, where it's not, I mean, there's definitely some wrong technical things in there, but that's everywhere. But like, it just says absolutely nothing. And it extends on. You go and read the reviews on Amazon on this book, and the reviews are nothing. Like, they're all 5 stars. They say, what a wonderful, informative book that really enhanced my experience in my ceramic studio.
Don't people like pay services for that? Like producer Ben, like could you like pay somebody to leave 1 million great reviews for your book?
And have you done it, Ben? And how much does it cost?
No.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I have no money. But actually, that's why Amazon came out with a verified thing. But actually, what that means is just that they bought it off of Amazon.
That's what I said to Rose, is that the author could have gone and bought 10 copies for themselves and then used used a service that used fake accounts and fake information and AI generated reviews.
Yeah, but at the same time, like in the description, it says like full of colored, like descriptive pictures. And in the book, it's literally 5 pictures or 6 pictures, all black and white.
All black and white. And they're all very
that's terrible. No. A Glaze book has to have a lot of photos to keep my attention.
That's the other thing. It has no Glaze formulas in it whatsoever.
Nothing. It's all just words, and not relevant words. It's all just like ceramics are a thing.
Yeah. It's like in your English class where they said you should like try to not have run-on sentences and not try to portray the idea in multiple areas in a paragraph. This writing is just like this. It says the same thing in each sentence, only written slightly different. It's really strange.
Now, we do have a published author here with our own Ben Carter. And I was talking with Ben with this before the show. And his wife teaches and had brought up that a lot of the kids these days are using AI to write papers. And he knew about a website called ZeroG GPT to push this text through. And so we grabbed a section of this text, and ZeroG GPT then analyzes it to see whether it's fake. And it says that there is an 81.25% chance that this is AI generated. Just from that same sample of text that I read to you. That's not 100%. I can't tell, if there's how it's getting this analysis. You think it's referencing ChatGPT, Ben?
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, is ZeroG GPT just searches. That's 80% chance that it was written with ChatGPT. If you use 2 AIs, then neither of the finders can tell if it's 100% AI generated.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
What's the
students
world
will
coming
find
to?
any excuse to not do work. So my wife has like totally had to learn all these tricks to get them to not cheat. They still do it though.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh, totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and by my estimation, so are people who are self-publishing books on Amazon. Okay, so we agreed. I'm gonna say, Ben, you can choose to bleep this or not. But I know I've gone this whole time and people are like, wait, what is the name of this book? No, I did not say it. Whether or not this is bleeped or not is up to Ben. The name of the book is Ceramic. We are not going to call out the name of the author. But what I will say is, people, if you're buying a book on glazes, Google the author. Are they a real person? Are they somebody in the ceramics community? Because when you look up the name of this author, that they have, like I said, there's no biographical statement on there. They have no history on Amazon.
Not even in the
Nothing comes
book.
up on,
Like there's
not even
nothing
in the book.
that tells you about the author, which is
Not an about me page. It's ugly. It's real ugly. And I know this is the whole world. I'm sure there's books on gardening and cooking and everything out there. And it's now come to ceramics because somebody found out that they can, put a prompt into an AI generator and then put up a self-published book on Amazon and get, it's $15.
they got $15 out of
Well,
you.
I paid them because I wanted to know. Yeah, be wary, everybody. Make sure that your glazed books are being written by reputable authors like Ben Carter.
Okay. Well, on an upside, a verified self-published book that's on Amazon, and I'm going to give it a huge shout out. So when I go to do workshops, especially like a 2-week workshop at Penland, every afternoon we have to clean the studio. So I've always read terrible romance novels aloud to the class as we're mopping, etc. But then I thought to myself, I wonder if there's like a ceramic themed one. And there's a self-published book called Kiln Zone. All right,
Oh,
everybody
my gosh.
So it's part murder mystery, it's part romance, drama, police drama, everything all wrapped up in a one. And you want to look it up. And, it starts with somebody goes to the studio after the weekend and opens up the kiln, and there's something in there that shouldn't be. Bum, bum, bum.
For Flux Sake is brought to you by us, Rose and Matt at Ceramic Materials Workshop. We created Ceramic Materials Workshop to be a place online to learn how clay and glazes really work, with none of the myths, rumors, and nonsense you may have heard out in the public. We've spent years working and researching and teaching at the best ceramic schools in the world to put together a revolutionary ceramic materials education. If you like what you've learned from us on For Flux Sake, you'll love what we have to show you at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com. Dip your toes in with short courses like our online workshops, or dive headfirst into our full classes on glaze chemistry, clay bodies, and the ever-perplexing crystalline glazes. All at ceramicmaterialsworkshop.com. Join us and we'll change your studio forever. Now back to us.
Can we actually answer a question now? Because I actually had to remind myself.
Is it a real question? Are these AI generated questions? Are we in the Matrix?
Who are you? Who am I? Okay.
I took the blue pill.
So our first question comes from Kelsey from Boseman, Montana. And Kelsey has a question about speckled clay.
Hello, Rose, Matt, and Kathy. This is Kelsey from Boseman, Montana. I fired a cone 6 in an electric kiln using commercial glazes due to space constraints. I use Wally's Blush stoneware from the Archie Bray Foundation in Montana. From others' glaze testing pictures showing the same glazes on different clay bodies, I've noticed that mini glazes look better to me on speckled clay bodies. It seems like speckled clays often create more tiny variations in color, more depth and complexity to the surface. My question is there any surface treatment I can apply to my pieces before glazing to make my glazes look more like they would on a speckled clay? If there isn't a surface option, any suggestions about adding granular manganese, magnetite, or ilmenite to the clay itself? Would adding multiple different substances to the clay create even more variability in the glaze result than using just one? Thanks.
Well, she noted it, like about the idea of wedging things in. Wasn't silicon carbide something that you could wedge in, or am I making that up?
No, I wouldn't do silicon carbide. That'll
Okay.
bubble a lot.
Okay.
Granny grit gets like oozy spots and stuff
Yes,
like that.
but it doesn't have any
Yeah.
color.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, because Granny Grit's usually just feldspar.
How about the ilmenite that she cited?
You could use granular ilmenite, although I don't see ilmenite very often nowadays.
It's out there. It's out
Yeah.
there. But the real question that she's asking though is the good one, which is sort of where the spots have to be. Because yeah, spotty body, as we will call it, spotty body is traditionally what you're going to find in a chunky stoneware. And so there's a lot of those like really chunky toothy stonewares that is occurring generally because of the material fire clays. Fire clays will tend to have a lot of sort of natural iron granules in them, and that iron will bleed through into the glaze, especially if that glaze contains magnesium. Magnesium will tend to really draw them out. So, look for glazes that have dolomite or talc in them, and that'll really help to bleed them out. And in a reduction firing, I should say, that it usually needs to be a reduction firing. Oxidation, it works. It's not great. But that's cone 10 reduction, which is sort of the white whale in ceramics. Most people don't have access to that. So there are a ton of cone 6 bodies. And you already said it, Kathy. Granular ilmenite, granular manganese, magnetite, Kelsey had mentioned. That's what most of them are. There might be some other form that I don't know. But yeah, most of them are mixing those in. And I think it's mostly manganese in most of them.
Yeah, I think so. That's like the biggest punch for your book is manganese.
Yeah. And it doesn't bleed as much. So the problem with using the iron-based sources is that iron is really going to melt effectively into that glaze. And in fact, I just had a student testing that and looking at variations in a glaze using ilmenite. So anyway, granular manganese, that makes sense for everybody. That's just manganese. And when we say granular, we're really talking about mesh size. I don't think there's a specific mesh size that needs to be listed for it to be designated as granular.
Oh, yeah, that I don't know, but it's like probably a 40-60 or something.
It's definitely less than 100. When what Rose is saying, when something says 40-60, it means it's been passed through a 40 mesh screen, but it cannot pass through a 60 mesh screen. So there's nothing finer than 60, but there's nothing larger than 40. And then not having something finer is really important because if you have more fine material, it's going to be distributed through the glaze and you're not going to see the speckles. It's just going to be muddiness. So yeah, probably 40-60. That's a good guess there.
Mm-hmm. And two, for the iron spots, those can cause other defects. So it won't just necessarily give you a spot, it will cause other problems too. So stay away from the iron.
Yeah, everything associated with iron. We've talked about how iron can cause bloating or blisters in glaze application and all of that kind of stuff. Iron, and it's probably why they stay away from iron because manganese doesn't have that. And so manganese is just a gritty form of manganese dioxide. Ilmenite is a material that's half iron and half titanium. It's about 50-50 of both within one material, but it's iron that causes the problem, and then you're sort of stuck with the iron. And magnetite's just a form of iron. So I think most of the time they're using granular manganese because it removes the issues. But I did just have this student who was testing with ilmenite. And oh boy, let me tell you, she was doing some systematic testing where she was adding it into a glaze as a surface treatment. And she was working with a glaze that was pretty stiff. It was sort of on the upper ends of where things will melt, but it was melting okay. But as soon as we started to get that glaze to melt more, it all streaked out. It all just like flowed into the glaze and it was no longer a spot. And it just sort of became sort of muddy streaks inside the glaze. And so that's always the contrast. Whereas the manganese, I don't think will do that as much, but in the glaze, I would be pretty skeptical of how effective that's going to be as a whole.
Well, and to keep them in suspension too, it would be hard in a glaze. Very hard in a glaze.
Such a good point. Yeah, because they're really going to want to fall out. So a slip would be better because a slip's going to have more clay in it and it can stay in suspension better and it could apply better. That would be the only way I'd say that's really relevant is to try mixing some in with a slip. But the mesh size and what that slip is and how you apply it is definitely going to be the question. But that's why it tends to work best as mixed into a clay body already, because then it's in the clay bodies.
I just took a quick look at two, manufacturers of speckled clay bodies at Cone 6, and I noted that both of them have their absorption as 2%, if not higher. Does that have anything to do with it? Or is that just terrible Cone 6 again? Yeah.
Just Cone 6, unfortunately. I don't think the spots are increasing its absorption.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look through our commercial clay profiling project. I don't remember having done any Cone 6 spotty body at this point, so I couldn't say. It usually is just a stoneware with some manganese thrown into it is usually what that composition is going to be. So if the stoneware vitrifies, the clay body should be vitrified. There's nothing in manganese. There are some materials that can make vitrification worse, like coarse grogs can be a big problem because they have absorption. And so you can have a clay body that's perfectly vitrified and you throw a bunch of coarse grog in there, your vitrification will seemingly go down because the grog can absorb water. And that's on the surface and all that. So, but manganese in and of itself should be pretty non-porous.
We should come back to this after you've checked the bodies that you all have tested. And I just want another opportunity to use the term spotty body. Let's go on to the next question. Our next question comes from Julia from Dallas, Texas. And Julia has an issue with plucking.
Hello, for Flux Sake. My name's Julia, and I am in Dallas, Texas. My question is about plucking. In my recent glaze fire, I had quite a few pieces that seemed to experience some plucking, and I'm trying to figure out maybe what the cause or causes could be. The internet is full of wisdom. I mean, needless to say, it doesn't match your wisdom, which is why I'm reaching out. But the internet is full of wisdom, and it's told me that it's everything from my pieces overfired to my pieces bloating, my pieces over vitrified, my kiln wash sucks, and my life would be just so much easier if I added a bunch of alumina hydrate to my wax.
Oh.
I wish it was that easy. I hope it's that easy, but I'm not 100% sure, so that's why I'm reaching out. I should mention that I'm using stoneware. It's a lower grog. Definitely not porcelain. Not about that life. And my last glaze fire was supposed to be a Cone 6, but it ended up going to a hot 7. So it could be that my pieces were overfired, and maybe bloated, and that could be the cause. I don't know. I hope that it's an easy fix, but I know that it's ceramics, and nothing is ever that easy or simple. But I hope I'm wrong. Thanks for everything y'all do. I appreciate it.
Well, I had never heard the term plucking.
Really?
Yeah. I had asked
so
producer
plucky,
Ben
Kathy.
if that's it. I know. Well, I mean, like personality-wise, sure. Not having to do with ceramics.
Well, I think that's because it's a selective problem. Either you've experienced plucking in your life or you haven't.
Exactly.
There are two kinds
And
of people.
I bet you have experienced plucking. It's probably called something else, though.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So plucking is when basically your exposed clay sticks slightly to the shelf, but not completely. So it has nothing to do with the glaze sticking to the shelf. It's your body. So your body's overfluxing and has glass in it. Fuses slightly to your shelf. So little pieces of your foot might come off,
Oh, yes.
but not the whole thing.
Yes, that happens all the time. But I was blaming it on the black underglaze that I was putting on the bottom of the piece.
Yeah, it's probably is overfluxing a little bit and then
Oh, yeah.
sticking to your kiln shelf. Yeah.
Well, it's not just overfluxing.
Well, I'm glad Julia threw in some information there because otherwise this conversation would go in a totally different direction and make me look like a fool.
Although there is one piece of
Never.
information that it would not be anything that she would think to include in the conversation, but has certainly become an issue with plucking problems more recently, which is what kind of kiln shelves is she using? because
Yeah.
there is a lot more plucking if you are using the silicon carbide style shells. And I am only saying the name. I won't call it the specific brand name that most people know the by, only because I don't blame the shells. It is not the shelf per se that is the problem, but it is associated with those silicon carbide shells. And I love those shells. We use those shells. But the problem commonly is that it's not just the temperature. Temperature makes it worse, but it is what are the fluxes inside that clay body. And very specifically, it is sodium-based fluxes in your clay body. So that would be a sodium feldspar, although that is less common. What is very common is nepheline cyanide being used in your clay body. The problem is clay bodies need a flux to bring down their temperature. Most clay bodies should use potassium-based feldspars. Potassium feldspars don't have this problem, which is why I've never had anything pluck in my life, because I only use potassium feldspars. But if you use something like nepheline cyanide, what happens is it is slightly water soluble. And because it is water soluble, that when you mix that clay with water, some of that sodium dissolves and then it moves when the piece dries to the exterior of the pot. And it's the whole pot. And one of those places is your exposed foot ring. A lot of that sodium will just get dissolved in the glaze and you'll never notice the difference. But on that exposed foot ring, you're going to get a lot of sodium, which is then going to flux with the silicon alumina in the clay. But this is where those silicon carbide shells become a bit of a problem, because the silicon carbide, when fluxed with a little bit of sodium, will turn into a glass and they will stick together. And that's where the plucking happens, because they're fused together just a little bit. And when you pull that pot off, if there's a weakness in the clay, that clay will break to relieve that stress. And that's where you get those little plucks hanging around. There are definitely, it's hard to know whether your clay has nepheline cyanide in it. You can ask your clay company.
You don't know if you're using commercial clay body, there's no way to know.
You don't. If you do see a lot of orange flashing on your exposed clay on your pots, that may be a sign that it has sodium, soluble sodium on them. That's the same deposits of soluble sodium. But if you don't, you're not going to know otherwise. As far as solutions for Julia, alumina wash isn't a bad idea. Mixing a little alumina hydrate in there does create a barrier layer. So it's basically standing on thousands of little alumina stilts. That's what's mixed into the wash. And then it can't really physically bond together.
But she also said this kiln load went hot.
Yes. And that's why when you're mixing that sodium in the silica, it's going to make more of that glass and it's going to make the problem even worse. So make sure that doesn't do it. But some alumina wash definitely could do it. That you might have to go back and sort of polish that down, because you may get a lot of alumina granules sticking to it.
Yeah, I've had to do that. Like, it looks, even trying to scrub it off, sometimes it'll stay on there. So getting like some wet dry sandpaper will take that off, or a blowtorch. No, get it.
Well, but you have to be even more careful, because if the alumina wash touches your glazes, they can get all nasty.
Yes, I have messed up some pieces with the little drip lips. Yep. Oh. Well, until I see you again, which will be in 2025. So happy New Year, Matt and Rose.
Happy New Year.
Yay.
We hope you all have had the greatest of 2024s.
What, Rose?
Rose needs a vacation, everybody.
Oh my goodness. All right.
We go to the Bahamas.
Well, it's been a great year. Let's hope the next one is a kind one. So until then.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful holidays, y'all.
Well, folks, that's it for this week's episode of For Flux Sake. I'd like to thank the listeners who submitted questions this week. And if you want your question answered on the show, shoot us an email at ForFluxSakePodcast@gmail.com. So join us next time. And when in your studio, remember what Rose always says.
Always remember to test, test, test. This is a test of the emergency glaze system.